If you're in the process of renovating your home, if you've got an electric vehicle or about to get an electric vehicle, or if you've got some fish at home, then this video is going to be rather relevant for you. These aren't things that usually go together, but when we're talking about solar panels and battery storage, they might just be. Let's go. We're back with a few more scenarios where solar just simply makes sense. Now let's get started with EV cars. When you have an electric vehicle, you're able to often charge overnight for 5 or 6 hours for a much lower price. Now in my scenario, this is at 6.5 pence with Octopus Go Intelligent EV Saver, because I get my car through the Octopus electric vehicle scheme. So it's a really, really low rate. But the downsides to these low rates overnight is the fact that your day rate ticks up ever so slightly. But there's something we can do eventually to be able to kind of bring the rest of your home down to that same 6.5 pence rate. And that's in the battery storage actually. I'll come on to solar panels just in a second when it comes to EVs. But effectively, what you can do is set a home battery to charge on the same off-peak rate that your electric vehicle charges up on as well. So at this point in time, your electric vehicle is busy taking power from the grid, but your home battery is as well. Think of this a little bit like a water barrel. We use water currently off the grid as we turn our tap on and off throughout the course of the day. But what I'm saying is, well, we can buy a barrel. It's really cheap overnight. Let's fill our barrel full of electricity, and then we can dispense this electricity throughout the course of the day in real time from our barrel battery to our home. So as you turn on the kettle, power is drawn up from the battery to meet any home demands. Thus, your home runs on that 6.5, 7 pence overnight off-peak rate. This can bring your energy bill down by sometimes as much as 75%. It's huge savings for those people on these electric vehicle tariffs. So if you're used to paying £3 to fill up your car overnight and you're thinking, wow, I've gone from this really high bill for fossil fuels of £50 to £60 a week filling the tank up, and I've gone down to £3 on an electric charge, the same can happen to your home. But there's also a feel-good feeling that sometimes when it's sunny and your car's taking a charge from your solar panels, you're effectively running not only for free, but you're kind of thinking, I'm essentially driving down the road on some power, and I think there's just something quite powerful about that. I also get asked a lot of questions about V2X, V2H, which is essentially where you take power from your car and deliver it to your home, but I'll come on to that just in a second. Because in context, when we have battery storage, this often couples quite nicely alongside solar panels. Now this is all subject to the budget that you've got available, but most people don't realise when they're on an electric vehicle rate, so that's 7 pence overnight, they also get preferential rates for exporting. In my scenario, I've got Octopus Intelligent Go EV Saver, as I mentioned earlier, but you can also get that alongside Octopus Outgoing, which is where you get 15 pence to export. So if you think about this, we're filling our water barrel up with really, really cheap electric, and actually, if we generate too much on our roof during the day, Octopus will buy it off us for 15 pence. So I buy it in for half the price I can sell it for. And that brings me quite nicely on to V2X, V2H. Now you might be thinking, what on earth is this? This is where essentially with a bi-directional EV charger, as long as your car is V2X ready, you can effectively take the power from your car and deliver it into your home. It's a little bit expensive at the minute in time, but in the fullness of time, I think this technology will get readily adopted. Now, this is particularly brilliant if your house is, for example, prone to blackouts. You can drive down to the local EV station and essentially fill that water barrel I was talking up earlier. You can now use the battery bank that's in your car to supply your home. V2X, V2H is a fairly new technology, and as I mentioned before, it's quite expensive. The Sig Energy Side and Store EV charger, depending on which model you go for, is about 2 to 3 grand. But I'm hoping in the fullness of time, this is going to come down a little bit. I know a couple of customers that have bought them already, they've been super happy with them. But the one thing you want to have in your mind is, right, well, I'm not quite ready to spend that couple of grand yet on that charger. I want a cheap one for now, but can I buy the technology that's ready for this? So if you're thinking of a Sig Energy Side and Store, it's perfect because effectively it's a module that goes in. So you can buy your inverter, buy your battery, get your solar panels, get yourself set up. And when the technology becomes a price where it's perhaps a little bit more attractive, we can essentially pop a module on top and away you go and it's set up ready. Battery placement is quite important in that scenario. So let's have a little bit look at pricing in this scenario. So first of all, for an EV car charging unit, typically speaking, you're about £1,000 fully installed. The great thing with an EV car charging unit, when it's coupled alongside solar and battery storage, it's 0% VAT. There's not that 20% VAT to claim because it's effectively a diverter from solar panels. Solar panels themselves, it's very subjective, but if I had a mid-sized battery and had a decent size array of 10 or 12 panels, I'm probably going to be somewhere in the region of about 9 to about 12 grand. And the reason why there's a window and a disparity is roofing types, and battery only is also a solution all by itself. So talking of materials and material costs, this brings me quite nicely onto my next point, which is renovators and re-roofing projects. So one of the most common calls we get is where somebody is effectively ripping off their roof, they've got a leak on their roof and they're thinking, whilst I'm at it, whilst I've got a scaffolding up, should I be considering solar panels or not? I also get people that are completely building a home from scratch. They're two very different topics. They sound very, very similar, but they apply in slightly different ways. So I'm going to come on to if you're planning on building your own home from scratch later on, but to start off with, let's just go through if I'm considering a re-roof. So when considering re-roofs, timing's quite important. It's quite good to get in there a little bit early when it comes to planning. Don't do it right. I've got the scaffolding up, the roof is there on site, now I need to try and instruct someone with solar and battery storage. Why? So if you kind of think about it, you need to have conversations, decide the kit that you want to go for, then apply for permission, then have a time window. So I would be saying 8 to 12 weeks before you're thinking of having your re-roof done, you should be considering chatting with your installer. Now, I also appreciate the fact that from a practical perspective, if your roof is leaking, you want to get on with it. So what do you do in that scenario? I think it's a good one. Let's first of all go through some aesthetic considerations, because if you're considering a re-roof, you're considering it, and then we're going to go through what we'll do if you're in a bit of a hurry. So there are a couple of different types and methods of installation mounting. I've actually done a really great video on in-roof and on-roof, which I'll make sure I pop in the description below. If you're in the position where you're planning nice and early, the best aesthetic finish, my personal opinion, is where you go for inset solar panels. So what happens is you felt and batten the roof. This is what your roofer would do, felt and batten like normal. Sometimes you need to use a fire rated felt. It's really important to check. Some solar panels and trays are effectively type tested for fire. Others aren't. Where you've not got that, you just need a fire rated felt, and that meets the standards effectively. We would then come in, or your installer would come in, mount the trays, mount the solar panels and flashings, and then your roofer would come afterwards and put all the tiles around. You're thinking, okay, this sounds quite complicated. It's actually very, very straightforward. And what this means to you is you're not paying the cost of tiles to be able to cover this surface area where the solar panels go. Thus, you cut your tile cost down massively. It's particularly Welsh laser, £7, £8 sometimes. So this can save a huge amount of money in material cost and roofing time. And if you're considering going for solar panels anyway, well, it makes sense to kind of hit two birds with one stone and make that saving. So some people go in, look mate, I'm in a bit of a hurry, my roof's leaking, I've not got many options here. Don't worry, you're not out of options. Sometimes you can go for on-roof. So let your roofer crack on and re-roof your house. If it's terribly leaking and you just need to get it sorted, get it done. Get your roof re-roofed and leave your scaffolding up, and effectively you can go on-roof. So you can make the most of scaffolding all at exactly the same time. This often works out to be slightly more expensive at the bottom line than if you go for inset. So if you can be organised, it always pays to do so. But if you're kind of left with no alternative option, then an on-roof system could sometimes be the right one for you. Now, inset solar panels can sometimes sound a little bit complicated. This is where that project management aspect comes in quite critically. Like ourselves, for example, we have in-house project managers, making sure you're picking a business that's actually got the physical experience of working with these systems. Ask them for references, ask them for photos of work that they've done previously, check out their reviews. These are all important things to do just to assess that they really and truthfully know what they're doing. When it comes to in-roof solar panels, it's quite tricky for me to be able to kind of estimate cost. I mentioned that video earlier, I've kind of done a video where we've done that comparison. I tried to break down the cost in that video, but I think in simple terms, what you save on your roofer's cost and your tile cost, often you'll add on to your solar panel cost, and when you get down to the bottom, there won't be much in it if I'm honest. So really do take the time to explore inset solar panels because they do look brilliant. One thing you might also want to know is big national installers will say, you can't do that, it's not possible to install alongside slate, you can't go inset. That's simply because just because they don't do it, You'll often find with inset panels, you have to go to far more local, far more specialist installers that will do this work. There's more work involved, there's more project management involved, but actually, when you break it down, as you'll see in that video, it's quite simple. If you're on a really tight budget and you're thinking, this came from behind me, I was not expecting to re-roof my roof this year, but you can't really compromise when it comes to scaffolding, you need to put tiles on your roof, and you're thinking of solar panels, and you're thinking, I want to go for inset, from my personal experience, cut back on your battery storage or remove it altogether for the moment. Fit a hybrid inverter and don't fit battery storage. If you're up on your roof, fit all the solar panels you can whilst you're at it. It's really, really hard to go back to and really cost prohibitive. Whereas an extra battery, they can be fitted often in less than half a day. They're really straightforward. A lot of installers make them out to be far harder to install than they actually are. Focus on the inset panels first and then come to battery storage later on. For those people that are building their house from the ground upwards, I'm going to come on to later on, and I've also not forgotten about the fish either. But let's start exploring high energy users. I consider a high energy user to be someone that's using more than 6,000 kilowatt hours per year, where we're running the washing machine, the tumble dryer all the time, electric augers, swim pools, saunas, hot tubs, all types of stuff. Or sometimes it's just simply the case of, you know what, I work really hard and I just want to be able to turn whatever I want, whenever I want on, and I want that flexibility and freedom of my energy. Where you've got super high energy consumption, we need to look at when that consumption's being consumed. If you're a heat pump user, that's going to be very different, for example, to air conditioning. If you think about it, a heat pump's going to be used lots and lots in the winter, so battery storage would probably be a little bit more appropriate. We're going to look to load shift from off-peak energy in order to be able to meet the peak demand, thus bringing the overall price of your energy unit right down. But if I had air conditioning, for example, well, probably not going to be using that in the winter, unless it's got a heat pump in, of course, but majority of the time that's used for cooling. So this is where solar panels might be a little bit more appropriate. Something else to mention to installers that people often forget is what you're thinking of doing in the future as well. You might be thinking, well, in the summer, I'm going to go and buy myself a hot tub if I've got solar panels. It's always good to mention that at the point we start off. So if you're using more than 6,000 kilowatt hours a year, how do we approach this? The holy grail of solar panels and battery storage is working the equipment as hard as possible. And I can't stress this enough. If you're exporting all of your energy out to the grid, you're only getting 15 pence a unit. But if you're using and absorbing this energy into your home, then that's the holy grail of return on investment, because you're effectively saving your 25, 26, 27 pence unit throughout the course of the day. This is effectively just wiping and nulling that bill out. You don't need to buy it from the grid anymore. You generate it on your roof. So long and short of it is, the bigger your bill, the faster the return on investment. If you're paying a couple of £100 a month on electric and or more, like the ROI for yourself is probably like 5 years, 6 years. It will pay it itself back super fast. And with solar panels lasting 25, 30 years, you kind of know that you're in for a 5-6 times multiplier. And that doesn't consider any cost rising that's going to happen with electricity bills over time. In 10 years time, are energy bills going to be higher? Probably. I think that's the scenario. So these savings over time effectively compound. So if I'm using, say, 6,000 kilowatt hours a year, what does my outlay look like? Battery storage by itself, say like a Powerwall 3 for example, without house backup, it's about 6.5 grand. If we added house backup with that, you might pay as much as 7.5. Now when it comes to solar panels, what you probably spend on battery storage in that scenario will probably mirror with solar panels as well. So you might be kind of 6-7 grand for solar panels if you were air conditioning by itself. That's with no battery storage. Now if we add battery storage, it could be a few grand more. We need a hybrid inverter, so again kind of 10-12 grand. If you've got very heavy consumption, so if you're kind of running multiple loads, heat pumps, run hot tubs, or maybe fish, talk about them in a second, the bigger the build, the more you have to spend, but equally, on the flip side, you can make bigger savings that go with it as well. Self-builders, people that are building their home from scratch. Often people will contact us quite early in the process, maybe 12 months, 2 years before they're even thinking of doing it, in the planning stage. That's always a good time to kind of get those conversations actually fired up. This is because if you kind of get in there early, you can spec these systems so they look really nice. I think if you're in the process of building your forever home and you're building it from scratch, you really want to consider all the aesthetic details. Now there are regulations to consider with this, but if we get in there nice and early in that planning and design process, often we can bury cables in walls. So this can mean like a Powerwall 3, for example. Instead of having all cables on the wall, we can have them sort of floating. We can do things like in-roof solar panels. They're set off and they just look beautiful and seamless because it's been measured, it's been considered. Any of the ugly bits are kind of hidden in plant rooms, and any of the beautiful things, the aesthetic things we want to consider that make your home look beautiful at the outset. All black, slick looking, inset panels that just look crisp. We can kind of do this all in mind. So what else to consider, and this is a little bit more technical, but as part of your new build process, you'll have something called a standard assessment procedure, SAP calculation. It's for part L of the building regulations. It happens on all new builds. This is where essentially the energy performance of your home is assessed. It has to meet a minimum standard. If it doesn't, so sometimes you can't do this with insulation or double glazing alone, some standard assessment procedures will specify solar panels at the outset. These will be south facing, north facing. Your assessor will essentially go, sometimes, look, you have to have 5 kilowatt peak worth of solar panels on this house. So this is something where if you're assessing and considering these things nice and early on, you can get all that technical stuff out of the way, and we can be going, well, actually, we could change the shape of the roof, elongate it, make it taller, make it wider, move this here, move that there. And that is going to create the most perfect finish when it comes to having your new build house. It's all the little things, it's all the tiny things, just taking that little bit more time when we're in the design process that can just really make solar panels and battery storage look. And this is where picking the right installer really, really matters. Now, I appreciate people watching this, we can't help everybody. We're in Wilmslow in the northwest. We're limited to what we can do. So you might be up in Scotland or down in London thinking, I really want this. This is how you'd assess to get the right installer. You want someone that employs engineers. You don't want to be talking to a sales rep. You want to be talking to someone who's qualified, that's had the hands on this stuff, that's experienced, that can make these recommendations. Taking this approach takes a little bit more time. It might cost you slightly more than the other option, fair enough. But actually, when it comes to it, you drive down your drive after you finish work at the end of the night and you look at your house, you think, I'm really glad I spent that extra little bit of time speccing that system so it just looks belting. Now, when you're assessing these installers, something to note is you can and do, I actively work off drawings. So this is where we can make mock-ups of solar systems alongside that. Anybody that's telling you that they can't work off drawings and you need to come later on once the roof's on, you just need to bin them off. I think that's a fair thing to say. You need to be looking at an alternative installer instead that's better set up to meet your requirements. I think one of the open conversations you've got to have with your installer at this point in time is what your budget is. And I think this is one where, by nature, most customers come to us and say, I don't want to tell you what my budget is. I'm going to try and hide all this information from you. The problem with that is it's counterintuitive. You might be thinking, I am on a genuine budget, I've only got 10 grand to spend, tell me what you can get for me, let's get the most out of it. And I think if you then start asking a few people, you'll get an idea of, is that right, is it not, is that too high, is that too low? You'll get a feel for things. Start with, get the design right, know what you're going to spend and just be honest and open. This is just one of those times where you have to kind of walk in and go, show me what a 12 grand system looks like, what a 15 grand system like, and what an 18 grand system looks like. Show me my options effectively. Show me the difference between the premium panel and maybe the mid-range panel, the premium battery storage and the mid-range battery storage. You can then work out where and how you want to compromise in that process. A little bit like car buying, you've got to walk in and know your budget before you start. When it comes to price, it's really hard to say because it is very subjective, but the one thing I can say is build it once, build it right, make it future-proof forever. If you're building your own home, you're probably going to be in there for 20, 30 years. It's better to just take your time, design it right, do it right, and make it bang on. And this brings me on to the topic of conversation that I'm probably most excited to talk to you about, fish. I get so many people, you'd be so surprised how many people actually have tropical fish, saltwater fish that really rely upon power being there consistently for these fish. So many people spend so much money on fish, it's actually quite surprising, and we get loads of inquiries about it. What I found for these, and there are actually options that are available for, and I'm not even joking here, if you, for example, got a carp pond outside and you need these pumps to continually oxygenate the water, these pumps, heating systems are quite expensive to run. They use a lot more power than you want. Well, you don't have to compromise. You can spec a solar system that would be appropriate for it. Now, if you're with warm water fish, they use power quite consistently throughout the course of the year. So this is where solar panels and battery storage combined together can often make sense. So in the summer, your pumps are busy whirring away. We've got overnight, We've got off-peak energy that we can use to supply them, use the battery storage to smooth the first part of the morning. Sun comes up, supplies the home with cheap energy, and then effectively when we're bordering on into the winter, we can use off-peak energy in the battery storage to be able to offset against our peak rate energy throughout the course of the day. One of the biggest things that comes from people that have fish is, and I had a guy recently actually just over near Buxton that basically said, look, if my power goes out for more than 2 hours, all these fish that I've spent ages kind of collecting, putting together, and that I'm really passionate about, all gonna die. I really don't like that idea. So what do we do? In that scenario, we put a whole house backup system in. So he was able to make some savings using off-peak energy to be able to supply the heating element within the tanks. Equally, when there was a power cut, which there was 2 weeks after we installed this system, there was a power cut. And effectively, he dropped me a WhatsApp saying, fish saved, thanks mate. And I was really super happy about it. So in that scenario, we spec'd Powerwall 3, we spec'd a gateway, and not only did it make some actual savings on the bill, but it actually provided a system to be able to protect the fish was set up ready in place. And it's not just fish. Actually, we've had a few people contact us. We've got like reptiles, snakes, for example, that need heat, where people breed like different types of birds and stuff, where they require heat lamps. I've got 3D printers, another one as well. Like if that stops mid-print, I've got a few problems happen. I've got to scrap it and start again. I really just would like a bit of time on my hands, so I've got some thinking time. So in the event the power goes out, it continues to work. Basic house backup probably will start about 5.5, 6 grand when you look at like a SIG Energy Side install with a gateway. If you're a Powerwall 3, then you're in a region of about 7.5 grand fully fitted. But it doesn't just have to be there for backup, it can make savings and pay for itself as well in the fullness of time. If you had solar panels, we could be a few grand more. I have done another video, so if you didn't find any of these scenarios you're thinking I'm actually in a slightly different scenario, have a watch of that video. Thanks and join us on the next one.